Greetings, Patriots. God bless you and welcome to Patriot News Broadcasting. So I want to start by reading you something real quick because I texted Juan earlier today and I wanted to read this word for word before we look at some things here. Obviously, the Charlie Kirk stuff's still on everyone's mind. So I asked, I said, is it a mistake to, think that Charlie Kirk is still alive? And Juan replied, Charlie Kirk is not alive. That is totally false. That would make all the people around him liars. It would also make Charlie a world-class deceiver, participant in a fraud and deception. And to what end? That would be the devil's work. Exactly the opposite of what Charlie's life was all about. This is literally being pushed by the flat earthers. So that's one statement on it. I want to show you a very small clip from what he also said earlier. If you saw him on Nino this morning, there was a real small clip I wanted to show you because I want to talk about this corruption in Utah that he was talking about. Oh, missed the light. Oh. There we go. All right, let me bring this up. We're only going to watch a second of this, but I need to show you this clip. Go to fast forward. Mega fast forward. This is pretty important. Somewhere here.
Lacey, the patsy for Charlie looks a lot like a triggered snowflake, and that debated him trying to verify this. Juan, do you know if he was going to expose what was happening at Eunice amongst other things? Much love.
Ask me that question again. I'm not sure I understood it.
Juan, do you know if he was going to expose what was happening at Eunice?
At unis, at universities.
Oh, universities. Thanks. Oh. Yeah, universities amongst other things. I'm so happy Alex is here to help out here.
Yeah, certainly that was part of the whole point with what Charlie Kirk was doing. He went to Utah, of all places, and was going to be on numerous campuses. It wasn't just the location where he was killed. That was the first of several. And there's something pretty wild, amazing happening in Utah right now. After the election was stolen, and I'm not mincing words.
No.
Oh, well.
We got to be careful on
and by the way, Nino, let me just tell you something. The people that watch what goes on over there, YouTube, numerous other shows where I have gotten, cut off, not able to function, unable to say stuff. YouTube has not pulled down any of those shows over the last 6 weeks.
I'm also able to have. All right. Well, I'm able to have.
And by the way, now the only question there would be where the shows are monetized, and I understand
exactly.
That, but
sounds like this channel.
And so. But they've changed the algorithms. They've changed them in the last several weeks, just so you know. So
they have not.
Anyway, there's something wild going on. You'll see it with what's going on with the governor. In fact, I told in the show that we did last night, something major is about to hit Utah. Probably already hit by now, but I'll let that happen. That's going to challenge a number of people being able to be in office and their authorities to be in office. And it's a major RICO, and I think it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, especially because of the way.
I'm going to show you exactly what he's talking about with Utah here in 1 second, but the next question that comes up, he explains what he meant by Valhalla, so I'm going to let him say this real quick. We got like 2 more minutes.
It's written. It's not one of these ones that takes years to play through. It'll play through pretty quickly, and it's going to be very disruptive within the government of Utah. So we'll talk more about that as the days go on.
Mario P, God bless, had a random dream. We were talking about tunnels and how things were going to start coming out about their use. Do you know anything about that, Juanito? I mean, is that going to come out?
Well, I think it's been coming out continuously. You got tunnels all over the country that people don't realize are there, and underground operations, and it's been talked about for decades. But the specific way that some of them are being used, I think that continues to come to the fore. So I don't know if it's that new or unique, but there may be some specific locations or things that suddenly get greater exposure.
All right, next question. Tell Juan I love my coins and the Kid on the Side of the Road book. God bless you, Juan.
Well, I appreciate that tremendously. And, I think that the book has aged very well.
Should have sped this up a tiny bit. There we go.
Religion, whatever way you want to say it. If a warrior died in combat, in battle, they were said to go to Valhalla. In a modern sense, there has been a handful of people that took a deal in order to cooperate, but they would never get to be free again, kind of in the Prisoner TV series kind of a sense. And they're there, they can't get out, but they at least are still alive is kind of the routine. But that is reserved for a very specific type of person, and who has done something that is evil, but they get a chance to survive, not in a tiny four-sided cell. Very, very extreme, and only a handful. To say that would be something that Charlie Kirk would agree to or be required to accept is completely off the charts wrong. And by the way, again, it would imply that he was good with leaving his family, that people like President Trump were.
No, I disagree with this part, and I disagree with the next thing Nino's going to say in a second, but obviously his family would be involved in this if it were something like that. And I'm still on the fence, but I got to let you hear this real fast.
Didn't Kat Patel say something like that? See you in Valhalla or something?
Yes. And so that's a warrior's farewell to a fellow warrior. It's a way of saying Godspeed. You've done your part. And then in a warrior's heaven, that's the Norse Valhalla. And I think I've said that farewell to friends that have gone within a certain type of a group, and we all understood what it meant. It wasn't intended to be like some evil occult or something, going to some earthly prison because of something you've done. It's a warrior's paradise, and in this war that we're in, there's physical war, there's spiritual war, and sometimes they cross over. Charlie was waging an amazing spiritual warfare. And by the way, who knows what part, because they ran in similar circles, what part may have got purchase of hit solid ground in the heart of Elon to cause him to do the videos he's done over the last few weeks before Charlie's death. Again, there is a move of God. It's a hand of God thing. When God...
Well, the point is, Nino right after that says, I don't know where all this stuff is coming from. That's kind of bold. I mean, he knows where it's coming from. Look, I don't know how to put this. Like, I'm in a really tough position here because my loyalties to you guys and to the truth, and we are waging a war to take this country back. I think Juan has a job to do. And I'm in a, I've learned a lot from Juan, and I would still trust Juan with my life probably. And I should know better, really, than ask questions like that, because I should have known the exact answer I was going to get. But if you paid attention there, Juan goes back to the election in Utah, and that's exactly what he talked about with Nino in that card game that they were doing that pointed out September 10th and all that stuff. So it's tough for me to sit here and say one way or the other, because I'm not going to be like those other people that sit there and say, I know this for a fact, or I know that for a fact. And that's what all these other guys are kind of doing. I'm not going to pretend I know any of that for a fact, on either side of it. If you listen to that episode earlier, though, Nino said something in that episode. He said, my cousin was there in the front, in the second row, and he saw it happen, and that he's definitely dead. But, again, if it were a narrative, a fake for a point, that purpose has to be served. And in order to serve that purpose, Charlie Kirk has to be dead. So, officially, he's dead. Unofficially, I still have my doubts. And we'll get to that. Right now, I want to look at what he's talking about with Utah. Let's start with what's breaking in Utah at the current moment. 11 signature gatherers charged with forging signatures for Utah candidates. This is a piece of the puzzle.
The Utah Attorney General's office announced charges against 11 people today, accusing them of forgery during the signature gathering process for Utah political candidates. All of the accused are independent contractors working on behalf of a company called Gather Inc. The contractors gathered signatures for several candidates, most notably for Governor Spencer Cox, Congressman Blake Moore, former Senate candidate Brad Wilson, along with State Senator Don Ibsen and other local candidates. Officials and Gather Inc. say Governor Cox received enough valid signatures to qualify for the ballot.
Governor Cox for sure has enough signatures.
So that's people forging signatures to qualify for the ballot there. That's one story. About a week ago, we had this story. 7 individuals were arrested in Fremont County for felony charges of voter fraud and perjury related to the May 2023 election. But I think it's closer to this article here. Senator Mike Lee of Utah says postal worker endorsements create cozy arrangements that could sway elections. Postal worker endorsements create cozy arrangements that could sway elections. And this is in regards to the mail-in ballots. So what if in Utah there's postal workers that have been bribed to be in on the mail-in ballots during the Utah election? Or if a union backs one candidate, it influences the ballot handling. That's another big thing in Utah. The other thing, of course, is the congressional map that a judge ruled must be redrawn before the 2026 elections in regards to gerrymandering. Anti-gerrymandering plaintiffs are fighting back in Utah, and it's probably going to the Utah Supreme Court to decide whether or not that map should be redistricted. So there are a lot of things going on in Utah. how could any of that connect to Charlie Kirk? We're gonna look a little deeper into some of that, because there's still the Antifa angle, the Muslim Brotherhood angle, the Israeli angle. There's quite a few angles we got to look at here. By the way, I invited Juan to come on the show in 3 weeks on October 7th. That's my 40th birthday, and it's also the anniversary of the Hamas attack on Israel. And so I'm hoping we can talk about that day. And he said it wasn't guaranteed, but he's going to try to come on that day. So get this. Tornadoes also ripped through Utah. Utah is having a hell of a week, I would say. And this is fairly rare for Utah. I'd say somebody angered God. That's just my guess. We're going to get back to Charlie here in 1 second.
At least 3 homes are destroyed after 2 tornadoes formed near the Utah-Colorado state line. The National Weather Service in Grand Junction confirmed one of them was on the ground for 10 minutes. That's a strange place.
Yeah, you just don't see it out there, right? Angela McCall's along now. And unusual sight, I mean, for that place, for this time of year.
I mean, so many different elements here that make...
Very unusual, but, Utah. All right, let's talk about some things here. Number 1, Charlie Kirk got killed inside of a menorah. The area he was in, let me see if I can make this bigger for you. That's on the bottom. He was there in the white tent. At the top, they show you it again next to a menorah. Oddly, he was killed inside of a menorah candle. What's also odd is that the school is already tearing out that area.
Let's see what are they doing, because I see a lot of construction smoke going on. Oh no, they are constructing, they are taking out the whole platform where he was sitting, and they are constructing a new one, as you can see. So that's what the change is. And guess what? The killer was there and there was a video taken from here, and that's where you see a killer running behind in the background. And
people felt like it was a little fast to start tearing up the concrete already. Some people were pretty upset by that. There's so many weird things we got to look at. On one positive side, though, in South Carolina, one lawmaker is working to rename a road in honor of Charlie Kirk. So that's a positive touch.
To a first alert, one South Carolina representative is pushing a plan to rename a roadway in Lawrence County in honor of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The idea is stirring up conversation here in the upstate. Now, Representative Luke Rankin of Lawrence County says he's committed to working with Lawrence City and county officials to move forward with naming a roadway after Kirk.
I hope that passes. I have a feeling it will. It's a good, honorable thing to do. Here's one post I wanted to look at. Was the bullet that killed Charlie recovered? No. And I'm not sure about this or not. So how do they know he was shot or killed by a .30-06 round? Because somewhere in the woods they found an old rifle, a mile away, 2 miles away, 4 miles away. Who found it? Can we see the body cam footage of the moment they found it in the woods? There is some footage of that, actually. What connects that rifle they found to the shot that killed Charlie Kirk? Nothing until they find the bullet. That's one look at it. I don't know. I honestly don't know the situation about the bullet, but looking at other things here we got to look at. Kash Patel kind of confused people today, or was confused himself. I don't know. He revealed the contents of a note that was written by the assassin, and then it wasn't a note. He said the note didn't exist anymore, and there was a text message, and it got a little confusing.
His family has collectively told investigators that he subscribed to left-wing ideology, and even more so in these last couple of years. And he had a text message exchange, he the suspect, with another individual, in which he claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for. Those are factually accurate investigatory findings by the FBI that we've handed over to the local authorities and the federal authorities to make their prosecutorial decisions. But I believe in this instance of such public importance, the public has a right to know. And I've told you I'm committed to transparency, and that's what I'm doing here.
We're going to look at that angle in a minute, because there were, up to 20 people in the chat. And so if this was real, you've got a situation that was coordinated by multiple people. And the same people might have a date in mind for killing Trump. We're going to look at that here shortly, too. Kash Patel also said they have critical cell phone data from the towers to the pinpoint where they ping the locations, and I told you they would probably do that. He said there was a lot more than 20-plus individuals in the Discord group chat that Tyler Robinson was in, although Discord's still not talking about any of that, though I imagine they'll work with the FBI. Somebody put this up and said, does anyone know when Tyler Robinson changed clothes? In one video, he's wearing shorts and a short-sleeve shirt. In another, he's wearing pants and a long-sleeve shirt. I believe there was a mention about changing clothes in the Discord chat, if I'm not mistaken. I do feel like I remember something about that, but this is starting to get really absurd, isn't it? Like really absurd. So there's that, and I'd have to go back and look at that. Kash Patel also mentioned that they had found DNA on the scene. This is interesting.
There was evidence, DNA evidence, that could be collected and had been collected, including a screwdriver that was found on the rooftop. Also, we went over to the scene in the wooded area where the firearm was discarded, and the firearm had a towel wrapped around it. It's important. I'll get back to that later. I even walked into the wooded area in the ravine, so I knew from my investigative experience what I could bring to the table and what decisions I needed to make. And having the support of President Trump and the full support of the White House was what we needed for these resources to happen. And I can report today that the DNA hits from the towel that was wrapped around the firearm and the DNA on the screwdriver are positively processed for the suspect in custody.
So, DNA on the towel that this gun was allegedly wrapped in when he jumped off the roof, and the screwdriver. Okay, so those two things don't go together. Here's the problem, the real problem. Most people didn't see the gun when he jumped off the roof. The only reason he would have the towel would be to wrap around the gun, but yet they still included the screwdriver, which goes back to the story of, well, he broke it down and put it back together. And I'm trying to picture this whole thing, and it's so absurd. I feel like they've took two different stories and mixed them up, where this towel and this screwdriver don't really feel like they go together to me. And of course, then there's this George Zinn guy we're going to look at. The first suspect that was arrested, George Zinn, following Charlie Kirk's assassination, has a very interesting past. In April of 2013, he sent an email threat 4 days after the Boston Marathon bombing to marathon organizers, placing bombs at the finish line, which he later claimed was a joke. He was also used a few times in interviews remembering 9/11. It's already suspect that he was there given his history, but to immediately take credit for the shooting and start yelling, "Shoot me," is highly improbable. It really does seem like he was a distraction or a crisis actor. Let's look at a couple things here.
Shoot me! Shoot me! Was that you? We don't know if it's him or not. So
that is the George. That is the George Zinn I speak of. This is him in a different video.
It was an interesting time when I went to, I was in Denver just on September 10th, 2001, and I'm a huge Broncos fan, so I was. It was the opening night of Denver Broncos Stadium. I went down there, and we were playing the Giants that night, and so it was a huge event for us.
He's just recalling 9/11. This next piece is weird. This kid went to do an interview right after the situation went down, and he was stopped. This kid's part of the American Comeback Tour, which is a part of Turning Point USA. So it's figured that he probably works within Charlie's organization. But listen to how they stopped him.
See what happened? Did you guys see what happened?
Yes, I saw him. What's it called? Are you recording this?
Yes, you're live right now. Well, we're recording. I don't know if we're live because of the cell service.
So,
hang on.
I was standing in probably the third. Okay. I was standing from probably the third row in the bottom. I saw him. I heard the shot ring out. I looked to my left, and then I looked over to my right. I saw him slump over in his chair forward. He slumped over. He had blood coming from the left side of his neck down his shirt, and he slumped over and he was carried off. Deb, we're not doing it. I'm sorry. Get off me! Get off me!
Emotions are running high right now.
I mean, they're basically assaulting that kid for trying to do the interview.
This guy says a man died today. This is unconfirmed. That's what this eyewitness testimony just said.
And the sound was off, but look at that. I mean, what?
Everybody's in shock, including myself.
I know sometimes groups like that don't want people to just start making statements, but I don't know. That was very forceful and odd at an odd time. People pointed out the number of cameras that were there, talking in regards to more footage if it will ever be seen. Likely not, but the FBI's probably got it. You can see a camera right in his face on the left. Now, on the right, there was a camera that goes directly above Charlie's head. And within a couple minutes of him being shot, they were already taking the camera down, which also seemed to bother some people. Yeah, I don't need to read that, but I'll show you what I mean. I assume the FBI got it, but
Safety team is here. I just heard them say the active shooter, Charlie Kirk, has been shot. Charlie Kirk got hit, is what the security detail just said.
So basically, people wondered what happened to that camera. I don't think we're going to see that stuff. The singer Bob Vylan's visa was pulled after he made a mockery of Charlie Kirk's death on stage. You get what's coming to you, asshole. That guy had that one coming. Captain Kyle posted this one. I think Trump sent us a cue that they're going after Antifa, and he connected some interesting things with Trump's post, yesterday's Delta, some other Deltas that jump one to the other about Antifa. It looks pretty solid to me. We'll look at those Deltas in a minute. This post, I don't know what the point. Maybe he just misspelled assassinated. I don't know if there's a message within the message here, but I could have sworn it was President Trump that misspelled assassinated, but Maybe I just wasn't looking at the post close enough. But that's from Don Jr. YouTube took down the video where Charlie Kirk questioned whether Israel issued a stand-down order on October 7th when they were attacked by Hamas. Seems like the one thing you can't do on YouTube is poke at Israel. Of course, I'm not monetized, so I do what I want. A Toronto public school teacher's been suspended after showing grade 5 and 6 students, some as young as 10, footage of Charlie Kirk's assassination and then telling her class that Kirk deserved to be killed. Yeah, she got a little bit of trouble for that. A lot of people getting in trouble. This post, okay, so on September 3rd, they posted, it'd be funny if someone like Charlie Kirk got shot on September 10th, LMAO. So 7 days before the fact, they named the date and exactly what would happen. 2 days ago, they put up a post that said Donald Trump, December 14th. Are they already planning an assassination attempt on Donald Trump on December 14th? And why the 14th? Let me see if I can figure out where Trump will be that day. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything with like a schedule. If you guys happen to know or know if there's a schedule written out that far in advance on Donald Trump, I'd like to know about it. But it's some pretty serious stuff right there. Something to think about. Steve Bannon was specifically talking about Antifa. Members of the military are training Antifa. This is not a single murder. There's a vast conspiracy behind this. They need to be designated as a domestic terrorist organization.
This was being treated as a single murder. It's not a single murder. This is not a single murder of a great man. There's a vast conspiracy in back of this. Antifa needs to be designated as a domestic terrorist organization. And hey, if you want to make it international terrorist, there's plenty of evidence of that. In fact, it came out of Europe. The trans part of this is a subset of that. That is also a conspiracy, an active conspiracy, a terrorist organization. Needs to be investigated. The New York Post has got has a great piece up. We'll put it up in a little while as we discuss this. It's now being, the law enforcement is now focused, and there was a lot of law enforcement that was fighting this. They want to treat it as a simple murder. It's not a simple murder. This is far deeper and far more malignant. And that's why in the next 2 weeks, to make sure we go after that, and any foreign money that came in, any foreign influence that came in from the Chinese Communist Party to Soros, to others, Arabella, all of it.
What if Antifa's involved with the bribes that's happening in Utah with the Postal Service and these contractors and things? I don't know. It makes you wonder. There's been a lot of stuff happening. People were arrested after vandalizing the Charlie Kirk vigil.
And as we were talking about that, the memorial continues to grow outside of Turning Point headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. But obviously concern over the temperature rising about political violence. And we're seeing some of that today. And this, a post on social media from Fox News saying, Justin, a man has been arrested after vandalizing the Charlie Kirk Kirk Memorial outside of TP USA headquarters in Arizona. The suspect identified as a 19-year-old Ryder Corral there. So we're also getting this video that I want to show you of some of this, because we've been diving into the latest with just some of this memorial growing. But this was the scene that was captured by Fox News a little bit earlier on. You can see people addressing this individual, potentially vandalizing what was going on there with this memorial, people stepping in, just average citizens, not necessarily law enforcement, but ultimately law enforcement did get involved. As
you got to be off in the brain and full of hate to go right through a crowd of people in mourning and just vandalize the memorial right in front of them. It's scummy. The level of hate out there right now, it's just, I don't have the words for it. So obviously, different politicians were talking at the memorial. Kari Lake was urging mothers to stop sending their kids to college, to what she calls college indoctrination camps after the murder of Charlie Kirk. How does a 22-year-old become so filled with hate? 5 years earlier, I was told it's all about the brainwashing colleges. Yeah, but it's when you're like me, you're in a tough position. You don't have much of a choice to go to college. But Trump is changing all that, thank God. RFK Jr. revealed that Charlie Kirk was the primary architect of his unification with President Trump. I thought this was somewhat telling, in my opinion.
And over the next couple of years, our friendship blossomed. He ended up being the primary architect of my unification with President Trump, which I did my endorsement at his rally, at the Turning Point rally in Scottsdale. And he was the one who put the sparklers on the stage when I shook it. He made a big show of it, but
it just makes it sound like Charlie Kirk had more influence and involvement there from the beginning, talking about bringing RFK and Trump together in that famous picture where you first saw them come out on stage together and the sparklers in the background. He set all that up. I thought that was wild. 2 people were arrested after placing an incendiary device at a TV news station, I believe.
We're back now with the FBI arresting 2 men near Salt Lake City. They're facing terrorism and weapons charges after an explosive device was found under a vehicle belonging to a local news station. Police say the device had been lit but failed to explode.
President Trump says
Utah again. Someone tried to blow up a TV news station. Isn't that weird? On top of all that, people are still losing their jobs. This story was kind of all over today, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. But this, nurse, she turned in some doctors and kind of got some retaliation.
A New Jersey nurse filing a lawsuit after she was suspended from her job after calling out a doctor who allegedly said Charlie Kirk deserved to die. The hospital saying, quote, both the doctor and the nurse were placed on suspension to allow time for a thorough and fair investigation following our standard protocol. And in the interest of everyone's safety, including their own, contrary to certain media reports, the nurse is...
Yeah, see, they're just doing an investigation. Trump's headed to the UK soon, and some people thought they would play a little trick on him. Some teenagers put this plaque on a bench at his golf course in loving memory of Jeffrey Epstein, a terrific guy. See you very, very soon, from Donald. And these kids pasted it on a bench at his Aberdeen golf course in Scotland as a little prank when he arrives. People are still obsessed with the Epstein stuff, though they didn't give 2 shits about it before they thought Trump was involved. It's funny. This story gets weirder and weirder. Trump, yet again, NORAD had to scramble fighter jets to intercept an aircraft that illegally flew over President Trump's Bedminster, New Jersey property, yet again, resulting in flares being deployed. This intercept was preceded by one separate violation earlier in the day, with an additional 2 violations occurring Sunday morning, bringing the total to 4 unauthorized incursions over the course of Saturday and Sunday. Why is this happening? If there's an airport close by and it's all accidental, God's sakes, fix it already. But why do they keep flying over the Bedminster golf course? Got to be something there. That's like the 10th time that's happened now, literally. You know, you're right, Xander. Everything about Epstein and Diddy does need to come to light because children were hurt. I can only hope that somehow the 2 of them are being used to keep more children from being hurt. Trump's threatening to declare a national emergency and come back to D.C. after the mayor caved to pressure from the left, saying that she no longer wants to work with ICE.
The nation's capital could soon be at the center of a showdown between 2 political heavyweights, President Donald Trump and D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. President Trump threatening to call a national emergency and federalize policing in D.C. after Mayor Bowser announced that local police would stop assisting ICE. News Nation's Hannah Brandt is live for us with the details. Hannah, on
they're so revealing. They know how much crime has been stopped thanks to the National Guard and ICE, and now they're turning around and showing you how corrupt and evil they are. Trump signed an order to send the National Guard and ICE and other agencies to restore public safety in Memphis. What's funny is, I want to show you what he says here in a second. Let me read this first. The only reason crime is somewhat down in Memphis is because the FBI and other federal government at my direction have been working there for 5 months. That's actually what I wanted to tell you. I knew he had people working in Memphis already. There's something big going on in Tennessee. I think Sean Taylor's wrapped up in the middle of it. I think there's a missing child's case wrapped up in the middle of it. Something big's being investigated in the Tennessee world of corruption. And I think it ties into why they're going into Memphis. But very revealing for Trump to say they've already been there for 5 months. 5 months.
Today, at the request of Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee, who's standing with us, as you know, I'm signing a presidential memorandum to establish the Memphis Safe Task Force, and it's very important because of the crime that's going on, not only in Memphis, in many cities, and we're going to take care of all of them, step by step, just like we did in D.C. We have virtually no crime in D.C. right now. And we're going to keep it that way. It's our nation's capital. We're going to keep it that way, or we're going to federalize it if we had to, but we don't have to anymore because it's in such great shape. This task force will be a replica of our extraordinarily successful efforts here. And you'll see it's a lot of the same thing, although the numbers here are really something. They're really bad.
The mayor of Memphis is trying to keep the National Guard out of Memphis, but it's not going to happen. Memphis, pretty dangerous, honestly, and it's such a beautiful city right on the river. Yeah, exactly, William. Trump's been on top of this stuff. 5 months working there, and you didn't even know about it. Conor McGregor is pulled out of the Irish presidential race. Maybe he thought twice about things.
Former MMA fighter Conor McGregor has announced he is withdrawing from the presidential election race. Mr. McGregor was among a number of prospective candidates who were due to address county councils, including Dublin City Council, on Monday to seek a nomination. 11 councils were due to hold special meetings on Monday to consider nominating a candidate. Candidates must be backed by either 4 local authorities or 20 members of the Oireachtas to be included on the ballot. In a social media post in the early hours of Monday morning, McGregor said he was truly humbled by the support and encouragement he received after canvassing the length and breadth of Ireland. He said, following careful reflection and after consulting with my family, I am withdrawing my candidacy from this presidential race. This was not an easy decision, but it is the right one at this moment in time. Though he has withdrawn from this.
It takes a certain kind of character to be able to lead an entire country like that. It takes a frame of steel, clearly. Trump's gotten pretty good at it. He is threatening sanctions on Russia. It's funny how this plot's moving forward.
Now to the day's other headlines. A major show of force by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Russia is holding large joint military drills with Belarus on a scale not seen in years. It comes as President Trump is threatening new sanctions, but only if NATO members stop buying Russian oil. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang.
I think it's really about the oil. I don't know why. I think it's mainly about stopping these European countries from being hypocrites, but I don't know. We got our own problems, don't we? These were our deltas yesterday. Hold the line, riders. Justice is coming. And patriot, the definition. A person who loves, supports, and defends his or her country and its interests with devotion. A person who loves their country and, if necessary, will fight for it. A person who vigorously supports their country and is prepared to defend it against enemies or detractors. A person who regards himself or herself as a defender, especially of individual rights, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Nothing can stop ya. Charlie Kirk knew the dangers. He kept pushing forward. The big trade meeting in Europe between the United States of America and China has gone very well. It'll be concluding shortly. A deal was also reached on a certain company that young people in our country very much wanted to save. It's talking about TikTok there. They will be very happy. I will be speaking to President Xi on Friday. It sounds like they want TikTok to be run by an American company. I don't know what kind of changes that will bring about. I swear Juan was talking about this show here when he was talking to Nino and about people being able to get away with stuff on YouTube. The state of Florida is officially an open carry state. All trial courts are immediately prohibited from enforcing the unconstitutional state ban on open carry. The Second Amendment has won in the red state of Florida officially. Basically, people are getting in trouble when they shouldn't be, and, the governor and sheriffs have had to intervene.
Hello, everyone. Sheriff Grady Judd here. The First District Court of Appeal in the state of Florida has ruled that our law prohibiting open carry is not valid. That's right. So effective September 25th, if you open carry a firearm in Florida in a public place, it's okay. Here's some things that you need to remember. First and foremost, I'm an advocate of the Second Amendment. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a fan of the Second Amendment. So exercise your Second Amendment rights. But it's important to remember a few things. Understand the law. For example, even with the ruling by the court where you can open carry firearms, as well as the law that allows you to carry firearms concealed, you can't do it in government buildings. You can't do it at colleges. You must understand the
certain places you can conceal carry, but people have been getting in trouble for it in Florida, and the small courts have been going through with the convictions, and they're not going to let it happen anymore. So you know that George Soros has been a huge proponent in paying these groups that lead to these protests and any kind of civil disobedience here in this country, but You might not have known he's not the only one. Neville Singham has spent millions funding militant organizations that have orchestrated violent riots and launched targeted hate campaigns against Americans with different beliefs. Chairman James Comer and Scott Bessent at the U.S. Treasury are calling to immediately freeze all of his assets. We will no longer allow billionaires to bankroll anti-American political movements on behalf of foreign governments. Freeze his assets. That would be a good idea. In case you're not familiar with Neville Singham, here is a quick reminder.
Well, the protests there in Southern California have the Trump administration and Republican lawmakers seeking an investigation into where protest organizers are getting their funding. And not just the ongoing anti-ICE protests, but also the pro-Palestine demonstrations that took place on college campuses over the past few years. Correspondent Rich McHugh is live to try and connect the dots here. So, Rich, what have you learned?
Hi, Nicole. Well, first of all, this is really complicated. The big question for everybody as these protests have unfolded in Los Angeles and across the country was who's funding them and who's behind all this. Now we know that the head of the FBI, or the FBI and the IRS have somebody in their crosshairs. So we took a look at this person. This is an American businessman, a former billionaire living in Shanghai at the moment. And according to the House Oversight Committee, they tell News Nation, he will be called to testify about his ties to the CCP, his funding of nonprofits, anti-Israel groups, protests on college campuses, and at least one of the groups connected to these Los Angeles protests. His name is Neville Roy Singham. He's an American who sold his company in 2017 for close to $1 billion. So let me try and connect the dots further. Reports show that he funded groups like the People's Forum, that's based in New York City, to the tune of millions. The People's Forum has deep personnel overlap with the Party of Socialism and Liberation, known as the PSL. It's a communist political party that has organized large-scale anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles. Now, Alex Goldenberg with the Network Contagion Research Institute has been unpacking Singham's influence and funding for 2 years. Here he is.
He has a footprint in India, South Africa, London, and is quite active in the United States, funding a network of nonprofit organizations to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. And he's not just funding activism. What we find is he's funding and exporting an authoritarian-aligned ideology under the banner of like American nonprofit legitimacy.
So it's odd. You wonder if our protesters realize that some of this money is coming from Chinese billionaires, or sort of like the video in the intro about the parking meters in Chicago. All the money from the parking meters in Chicago all goes to the United Arab Emirates. It's like, wonder if people even realize that stuff. A U.S. official pushed back on the claim that Trump could have stopped the strike on Qatar, but didn't. These anonymous Israeli sources making false accusations against the President of the United States and his administration should smarten up, according to Axios. Trump put this out. I've just read a news report that Hamas has moved the hostages above ground to use them as human shields against Israel's ground offensive. I hope the leaders of Hamas know what they're getting into if they do such a thing. This is a human atrocity, the likes of which few people have ever seen before. Don't let this happen or all bets are off. Release all hostages now. This article talks about an Israeli strike that leveled Gaza building that was said to have been sheltering displaced families. I don't know why they would specifically target these places. They were all warned of these attacks beforehand. And the other video shows a mass exodus of more than 100,000 Gazans fleeing the area. And these are really short.
Ahmed is inconsolable as he walks amid the rubble of another Israeli strike. A military evacuation order allowed him to escape with his life, but little else. The house is gone. Where will we stay? He cries. But he won't find any answers here, when so many others are asking themselves the same question. Night after night, Gaza City.
It's always the children that pay the price. Always the children that pay the price. Sadly. I'll be glad when that situation's over. If they're going to do their ground offensive, you know, they're doing their ground offensive, but I hope they get it over with. Get the place cleared out. The U.S. military launched a strike on another Venezuelan drug boat, as announced by President Trump today. This morning, on my orders, U.S. military forces conducted a second kinetic strike. I'm pretty sure this is the third, but, you know, unless the other one wasn't a kinetic strike, maybe. Not sure, but he's not going to tolerate the narcotics coming into the country any longer. And so this is the boat.
Let's turn our attention right now to more top headlines here on Live Now from Fox as we continue to detail the latest on another kinetic strike of a potential suspected narco-terrorist there in the Caribbean. I do want to put up just this video, or this post on social media, I should say, from the President of the United States talking about this, saying this morning, on my orders, the U.S. military forces conducted a second kinetic strike against positively identified.
I just wonder why he says second. It's the third. Unless, again, he's just meaning kinetic. Wonder what a kinetic strike entirely entails, because it's like 1 minute the boat's there and the next minute it's just gone. Crazy. Trump wants to abolish quarterly earning reports for businesses.
Speaking of which, the president also posted this morning about potentially changing companies' quarterly reports, saying, quote, subject to SEC approval, companies and corporations should no longer be forced to report on a quarterly basis, quarterly reporting, but rather to report on a 6-month basis. This will save money, allow managers to focus on properly running their companies. Jim, the Securities Exchange Act of 34 might have something to say about this.
It's interesting because a lot of countries.
I agree with that. Quarterly reports, your reports every 3 months. Does it really reflect on the kind of business a place did within a 3-month period? I don't know. Former prosecutor Maureen Comey, daughter of James Comey, sues the Trump administration over being fired.
A former federal prosecutor in Manhattan who worked on several high-profile criminal cases, including Sean Combs, Jeffrey Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell, is now suing the Trump administration after she was abruptly fired back in July. Maureen Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, claims in the lawsuit that she was never given any cause for her removal and claims that she was fired because of who her father is. James Comey was fired as FBI Director back in 2017 after he testified the FBI was investigating ties between Russian election interference and the Trump campaign.
I hope President Trump can work it out to where father and daughter have a cell together, you know. James, Maureen, he can play daddy, and never mind. Mississippi University canceled classes in its 100th anniversary celebrations after a body turned up on campus, a dead body.
We begin this newscast with breaking news, a tragic discovery this morning at Delta State University. University officials say a body was found on campus early this morning. Staff members discovered the individual and immediately notified campus police and local authorities, who are now investigating. In a response, the school canceled all classes services and centennial events scheduled for the day. In a statement, Delta State shared condolences to the family and friends impacted, saying the community is deeply saddened by the loss.
Deeply saddened. Yeah, it's a weird situation there in Mississippi. Tropical storm Mario is bringing rain up into the Arizona area and potentially California over the coming days. We're going to see where it's moving and what's happening in the Atlantic really quickly.
Now, Fox Weather is tracking newly designated Invest 92L, and it's one worth watching for sure. We know that we've had a bit of a quiet portion of the Atlantic season, and it remains quiet during the peak of the season now, but there is a chance that we could see our next named storm, and that could be soon. So joining me to discuss the state of the tropics is Dr. Carl Schreck, Senior Research Scholar at North Carolina State University.
Now, depending on, the one in the Pacific's no worry. The one in the Atlantic, if the patterns stay the same around the coast, that storm could get pulled right into the Florida coastline. It'll likely be a hurricane by then. We will keep watching it, though. And one more story to touch on in regards to China. This is videos people are putting out in the past few days claiming a missile struck what they call a UFO. That was from the night of September 12th. And those are 3 different videos shot and put out from China that are going viral in that area. UAPs, guys, they're everywhere. Okay. So that wraps up our news. Now, I got some things we need to look at tonight. Basically, anyone and everyone we've ever watched on here before made a video today. So there's a lot out there today. Anyone and everyone you could want to hear from is talking today. So let me take a look at where we're going to start, because we can start basically anywhere.